Please.
Yeah, it was excellent.
Well, Justin, I have a question for you.
You had a lot of families.
Hello.
It's good.
You have to go far
Do a
for
lot
it.
of times, but sometimes they'll bring in color plans.
They do that in AI, or that would
Be, you could merge them together because the.
Yeah, Justin.
Use AI.
Yes.
Hi. You have a meeting at 1, right?
Yeah.
How
$1,000.
much time will it take to get from where you are right now?
Oh, no, it's at my desk, so I'm not leaving my desk.
I'm gonna have you, I will still to the agenda.
I'm not in a big hurry, Matt.
I
think
think so. Generated from.
Justin, can you hear them?
Yeah, they're muted.
Okay, thank you.
It's very loud in there.
I gotcha.
Yeah, for little things, we use straw.
I'm not gonna do it as in depth for all of them, but I'm just showing folks kind of like I'm opening the website of a new grant. What to look for, like. It's like info sheets and then
But in just a couple minutes, but 2 more people.
like, yeah, just like. So I'm trying to. Yeah, I think we'll just kind of chip away. I know, it's like, because it's just funny, like, some people, it's like that, then, and some don't, and stuff. And I'm just, you know. Who knows what? Like I went over restricted on how facial anything.
For the instructors.
Hi. Deadline. So there's like.
All right, I think, we'll get going. It's 12:05, and I'll call the meeting to order. This is the NRPC Transportation Technical Advisory Committee TTAC meeting for Wednesday, May 13th. I'm Matt Wiggins. I'm the MPO coordinator here, and the first order of business is to go around through a round of introductions. So we'll start here in the room, then we'll start with Polly.
Hello, Polly Perkins. I work for the coastal program actually at DES, but I manage a culvert flood risk grant program and another project I'm going to be talking about today that brings me statewide. So excited to be here.
Ira Borowitz, NRPC. I'm usually sitting in the corner.
Nashua traffic.
Mark Saunders, Nashua.
Dominic Chief, City of Nashville.
And Greater Town of Hudson.
Nick Jermaine, Town of Wilton.
Nicole Crawford, Town of Milford.
Jared Pretzer, Town of Merrimack.
So regional mobility manager here at NRPC.
Eric Slavic, Town of Amherst.
Mark Chamberlain, Town of Limbo.
Will Luke, Amherst.
Jamie Carr, NRPC.
Salem Quinn, NRPC.
And we'll go to the back. Emma.
Emma Rarick, NRPC. Nancy Cashin, NRPC.
All right, and I'll read off the folks online and just say hello. So Justin Howard.
Hello, Justin Howard, LRTA, Director of Operations and Planning.
Thanks, Justin. Camille.
Good afternoon, Camille Correa, the Transit Administrator for Nashua Transit System.
Thanks, Camille. William.
Hey, William Rose with DOT.
Great. And Amanda.
Hi, all. I'm Amanda Gorg, the Executive Director of Bike Walk Alliance for New Hampshire.
Thanks, Amanda. All right, so that I think that covers everybody. The next order of business is to approve the April 8th meeting minutes. We do have a quorum, so I'm going to give you a moment to just take a look at them. And if there are or aren't any questions, I'll also look for a motion to adopt those.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 8th minutes.
All right, thanks, Mark. So, second, if anybody.
Second.
Thanks, Dan. All right, so we're gonna do a roll call. So start with Wayne.
Aye.
Mark.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Yeah, that's the.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Camille
Aye.
and William.
I'll abstain.
All right, well, I think the ayes have it, so thank you very much for that. All right. Next order of business, as Polly mentioned, she's going to be providing information about the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funded crossing capacity pilot program, and I'm going to share the screen here in a moment. Okay.
The podium.
Yeah, if we'd like. to give you the, This should.
Oh, it. Thanks. Nice.
So can people online see this? Does someone say yes? Thanks, Justin. Great.
Thanks. So once again, Polly Perkins from DES's Coastal Program, and today I will be talking about our crossing capacity pilot project that's funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. Me and Tyrell have been in cahoots for a few months now. It kicked off in January. So we're going to talk about why this project is even happening. What is the project? I'll do an overview. And we have some informational interviews coming up. So I'm just making a plug for that piece of the work. It's a really broad scope, so bear with me. I'm still working on how to organize all this information in a palatable, digestible way. So we'll see how it goes today. So my why this work is happening. I work for DES, but I'm really representing the New Hampshire Stream Crossing Initiative. And it's funny, walking back into this room, I was here with a UNH grad student, I think about 2 years ago, working on a precursor to this project. So I don't know if anyone's still here from those days, but it's good to be back. You guys have one of the nicest RPC offices in the state. I'll see. And so Stream Crossing Initiative, just to kind of get everyone on the same page here. It's an interstate agency group that's been around since basically the floods of 2005 and 6 and 7 kind of kicked off this crew, who assembled this stream crossing assessment protocol. Essentially, after all those big floods of the early aughts, this state was like, we need to get a handle on the stream crossings because there was a lot of issues from culverts during that time. And there's over 20,000 stream crossings in New Hampshire, and over 17,000 of them have been assessed using this stream crossing initiative, or the SCI's protocol, which was developed in the 2009 timeframe. So we have over 15 years of data that's been being collected consistently throughout that time period. I believe many RPC interns have participated over the years. And just kind of the why with stream crossings per se is, stream crossings, also just a quick definition, is essentially where a water body crosses a road. Like if you have a blue line on Google Maps, even lakes have some stream crossings, wetlands as well. So they tend to be bigger culverts, smaller bridges, some big bridges, but if bridges get too big, we can't have interns assessing them with rods and tape measures. So those tend to be excluded from the data set. But here's kind of some of the why photos. Why do we care about crossings? The state agencies that make up the Stream Crossing Initiative kind of plug into these different photos. So Department of Environmental Services, we're the regulatory body for stream crossing permitting. We also tend to be really interested in the water quality aspects and some habitat restoration. So when you have a culvert that's, spewing out gravel up the backside, or when big flooding occurs and takes out stream banks, that sediment transport and a lot of the stuff that comes with flooding, DES gets really interested in. Department of Transportation chairs the committee. They get really interested in things like structural condition, more transportation folks, safety. Flooding is kind of the unifying factor for everyone. UNHT2 is also part of the Stream Crossing Initiative. They help with that kind of transportation safety and getting the word out. Fish and game, obviously, if you have a perched culvert like this, there's some really sad fish that may not be able to get through the stream that they live in. So we think about habitat fragmentation. And then Homeland Security and Emergency Management, again, kind of that safety and emergency response aspect. So that's the Stream Crossing Initiative. And this data set, 17,000 plus culverts that have been, and bridges that have been assessed for this protocol, are the backbone of this crossing capacity project. We're trying to get into how to use this data set in the most effective way. Got that.
Can you advance it?
Yeah, you can either advance it here or with the screen.
All right. So the goal of this program is to increase the rate of stream crossing implementation throughout New Hampshire using database decision making. So trying to use this data to kind of inform decisions at the community and regional level. So why this line of work? So like I said, when I introduced myself, I manage a culvert grant program for DES. It was funded by ARPA, and the funding's actually ending this August with all the other ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan Act. And there is no money to keep that grant program going, unfortunately. But it did give me a front row seat to some community engagement and what are some of the needs in the community. So my name is now on the internet next to Culvert Grant, but it's an empty bank account. So I get a lot of calls from people with problem culverts that need funding, and all I have is this data set. So I'm trying to figure out how to use this data to help them connect to funding sources. This is just a screenshot of, so all that data that I'm talking about from all the assessments from the stream crossing assessment, it's available. It's all publicly available online through this Stream Crossing Initiative data viewer. And it has a lot of information. So usually when I get a call from someone, this is an example in Northampton, someone called and was like, hey, I have this culvert. I keep dumping asphalt into it. It's falling apart. It floods. We need help. We need money. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of different ways to get funding because at a culvert, and it depends on what's going on. So I usually look at this data set, all these green blobs. This blue blob is high priority habitat blocks from Department of Fish and Game. This orange blob here indicates there's a wildlife corridor going up through this part of the road where the culvert is. There's purple wetlands nearby. And this black flag layer tells us flooding has actually been recorded at this spot. And I can tell here with the Stream Crossing Initiative data, we have a model that we run to see can the 10-year, 20-year, 50 and 100-year storm potentially run through this culvert? Will there be flooding there? What condition is it in? Can fish get through it? And does the size of the culvert match the size of the stream? So I can get a lot of information to share with people that can potentially inspire different types of grant funding. And so that's a big part of what we're trying to do with the Stream Crossing Initiative is teach folks like road agents that might not think about endangered turtle species, but those turtles might get them money to do their transportation project. We also have a Stream Crossing Initiative funding table that actually does check those boxes. So what is a potential grant eligibility criteria like builds flood resiliency or benefits a threatened endangered species? And if you check one of these boxes based off the data in the mapper, we tell you which grant programs you might be eligible for and provide some helpful funding. So right now, this is manually happening. Like I'm talking to these folks, I'm helping them match up what's going on with different grant programs for their culverts. And we're trying to come up with a more accessible way for people to access this type of information through this crossing capacity project. The other way I hear about phone calls about culverts is usually it's like a local group, like a conservation commission that's like, we want to help our town replace all the culverts that don't have fish passage. You know, they're motivated by something very specific. Or a lake association group that says, we want to replace all the culverts that are puking, eroding, and sediment into my lake that has cyanobacteria blooms. So for those folks with this data viewer, you can filter by town, you can filter by watershed, and then you can filter by the data sets, like what doesn't allow aquatic organism passage. But this is, but an example, a lot of towns in New Hampshire, you guys have a pretty disparate population in terms of town sizes, but the culverts tend to be in the maybe dozens to hundreds to maybe thousands. If you're looking at one town's worth of, say, 80 or so culverts, and you filter by just fish passage, which ones don't allow fish passage, you still often end up with 30, 40, 50 culverts. So I get a lot of questions of like, where should we start? Which of the 30 culverts that don't allow fish passage in my town should we focus on? And I'm like, well, you should go talk to your road agent and see where do they have issues and where do they want to focus resources. But that's kind of where I leave the conversation because I have a whole other full-time job that I'm trying to do. So I try to give people as much information as I can, but I'm a one-woman culvert show right now. And so that's why we are working on this capacity project for stream crossings specifically. Because right now, folks either have to bootstrap it and maybe they have a really awesome volunteer helping lead the charge, or they have to hire a consultant, partner with the university to really get a handle on maybe a more town-wide or regional scale type of work. So just final kind of thoughts on what I've learned being a grant administrator for culvert projects is that a lot of temporary fixes happen during emergency situations, and those temporary fixes outlast their temporary status. And you're stuck with some kind of bad fitting or quickly installed situations that you then have to reinvest in as a town. Municipal staff capacity is super limited. A lot of our towns are run by volunteer boards, and those volunteers come and go. And crossing projects tend to take, multiple years. I'd say 5 years on average. I've had some as long as 15 years, and I've had some where the budget's $500,000 all the way up to 1.5 million. So these are like large capital projects that take multiple years. And if you have volunteers turnover over that time, or even staff turnover, it can be really hard to see those projects through. And so partnerships are really important to access the different funding sources to make that big of a project happen. And then also equity. For me in the culvert world, equity means like those towns that have maybe one town administrator and one road agent and maybe a part-time land use clerk, they can't even raise their hands and ask for help because they're so busy just doing their day-to-day. So we're looking to try and provide capacity to our municipalities and beyond, community groups as well, to be able to access resources. So we're trying to talk to the small guys as well as the ones who know how to raise their hand and make grant applications happen. So that's why this crossing capacity project is happening and what it entails. It's a pilot project. I keep emphasizing the word pilot because the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant that funded this is for the Coastal Resiliency Fund. Thankfully, they call the Merrimack River a coastal watershed, so it does encompass about a third of the state. You guys are down here. You notice the Merrimack watershed has a little bit of a gap for your guys' region in particular. So not everyone is 100% eligible for everything I have to talk about today, but it doesn't mean you're not excluded completely. So this is where we're focusing on for the next 2 years. I have a searchable map that we can make sure gets out to folks so you can see where you fall. Tell a friend. The budget of this grant is just about $1 million. We have 2 years to spend it. The goal of this project is to empower transportation, wildlife, and environmental stakeholders to create a pipeline of stream crossing projects. And again, this is the National Coastal Resilience Fund. And so the promise I made to NIFWIF with these dollars is that we're going to create a pipeline of at least 10 projects sized to manage future flows. The 100-year storm of 2100 is the goal we're shooting for. That obviously may not happen every single time based on things like site constraint, based on things like budget. But basically with this pilot, we're going to try shooting for the stars and funding really large culverts and see how does it go in the state of New Hampshire. Any questions so far? Or should I save questions for the end so we can get through things? All right, feel free to bug me. Okay, so a kind of a quick synopsis of the scope of this 2-year project. We are staffing a portion of a position at each RPC within that pilot project area. There's 5 main RPCs that touch those watershed boundaries. You guys are one of them. And we're calling those folks at the RPCs stream crossing navigators. So I was on my planning board in my town in the Upper Valley, and we had a housing navigator trying to connect us to housing funding and resources. So similarly, now we have crossing navigators that are going to try and connect communities to stream crossing replacement resources. And Tyrell is your guys' crossing navigator. So gold star for Tyrell. Super pumped to have you on board. Last time I was here 2 years ago, I was with my UNH grad student, and we were working on a model that took all those data points and could help tell you which ones were the worst of the worst or the best of the best, depending on your frame of mind, I suppose. But that model is being finalized and turned into a crossing prioritization tool. So for that kind of second scenario where I say communities come to me and they say, I now know that I have 40 culverts that don't allow fish passage. Which one is number one? Which one is number 40 in terms of who cares about it? We're creating a prioritization tool that'll be similar to the data viewer, but will actually crunch the data in the background and give you prioritized lists to work from. The idea is that we can create a prioritized list and you can take it to your road agent if you're on the COMCOM or if you're your town administrator or what have you. And you can start the conversation of which of these culverts we think this might be a top priority. Is it for you? It's a priority for me because I live on the lake and I want to stop erosion to help the water quality. So the idea is that we're creating a tool that can bring all those stakeholders that are sometimes disparate to the same table. And we have Tyrell to help do that over the next couple of years. But we're finalizing the tool. We're creating planning how-to guides. So we're going to make this tool and we're going to say, how can you prioritize culverts for a hazard mitigation plan? So that we're kind of making this prioritization idea business as usual, and culverts can rise to the top of the list a little more frequently. We're also thinking about how to include culvert prioritization in watershed-based plans for your lakes and rivers, how to include culvert prioritization in your capital improvement plans. So that's going to be a helpful resource, hopefully. And we're also providing engineering technical assistance. We have Tyrell to help connect communities to our engineering teams who are ready to conduct opportunity assessments, kind of like alternatives analysis for particular culverts that you have rise to the top of your list, whether it's from the tool or from your brain. And then we also have some funding set aside to help with preliminary engineering and design as well. So the idea is that we're actually generating a project pipeline of projects that will be ready to be applied for future funding. Okay, so here's the project timeline. Right now, this is a typo, it's 2026. So from now and through the end of the year, we're finalizing the prioritization model and we're creating that spiffy prioritization tool that will spit out prioritized lists of culverts for a community, for a watershed, for an RPC, for example. The tool is going to be available and ready to go, and we're in 2027. That's when we think the rubber will really hit the road on this project generation. We expect things will start ramping up by the end of the year. We're going to have workshops and trainings on how to use the tool throughout that year in 2027. And then ultimately what I'm hoping I can do now that I have projects coming my way like crazy, I can justify to folks like National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. I'm also applying to federal highways funding, pretty much anywhere I can make the justification. I'm working to create that stream crossing grant program that's kind of dying from the ARPA fund. So bringing some of those federal dollars down to the state. So that's a dream that's happening at the end of 2027 and into the 2028 frame. Okay, so that's kind of what the project is. We're creating a tool to bring that data to the people to help folks make decisions. We're going to have handholders to help folks utilize it and get to know it and even go through the grant application process potentially. And we have engineers on board to provide technical assistance resources as well. One of the other deliverables that we have is a best practices summary. So we're going to be answering the question with our consultant team, how is crossing management happening in New Hampshire? How is it happening across the country? We have them talking to Washington State, to Maine, and they're doing a bunch of research on how other states in the US do this kind of work and make good projects happen that can manage the big storms that are headed our way more frequently these days. And so then they were also going to make recommendations on how could we improve stream crossing management in New Hampshire. So the most imminent deliverable that we have coming is this best practices summary, where we're going to be asking those questions. Our consultants and the crossing navigators are interviewing small, medium, and large towns across New Hampshire. We're also interviewing, like I said, a couple other states. We're interviewing a few of the engineering firms that work on this work. We're gonna be asking about workload, like how many projects does your size town do in a year, in 5 years? How do you choose which projects to focus on? Where do you get the funding to make those projects? So we're gonna be asking about crossing management pretty generally. And Tyrell's gonna begin scheduling those in the next couple weeks, and we're gonna be collecting that information through these kind of 30-minute or so informational interviews through mid-June. And then we'll be collecting all that data. Our consultant's gonna be summarizing it nicely for us and reporting it back out in a best practices summary document that will live on the SCI website. And we'll also likely present it online, a webinar as well. So that's kind of the plug I have for you guys. I think that's my final slide. That's what our next big step is. While the model's being developed, we're like, let's figure out what's going on the ground here and report it back out. So if anyone has thoughts on who else we could reach out to besides municipalities, we're thinking like conservation districts, who else does culvert work in your community that might want to talk to us about it. I'm an open book right now. Tyrell is as well. And yeah, that's where we're headed next couple of years. So thanks.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please.
So if we want to invite you or Terrell as the navigator to a conservation commission meeting, I think that would be appropriate for some of the towns that have rivers flowing through.
Absolutely.
And should I contact Terrell?
I would say contact Terrell, and then we're kind of working together to figure out who's doing what exactly. And like right now, we're making a big list of who wants to talk to us. So
Okay.
definitely, that's a great suggestion.
And the other question I have, does this cover fish ladders? And are there any fish ladders in our footprint? I would think the Souhegan may have fish ladders where there's a big dam.
Yeah, I know DES's like one-stop data center, because DES has the Dam Bureau, we manage a lot of the dams in the state. That has the fish ladder layer of like what is causing issues. It also includes things like natural things like waterfalls. Fish can't swim up those typically either. So that's not in this mapper, but it is on the DES GIS resources for sure. And it's not part of this project right now. We're focusing solely on culverts, crossings. There's kind of a whole nother crew of motivated folks thinking about dams and fish ladders. And that kind of thing. Yeah. Always top of mind.
If anyone would like to schedule an interview with me and possibly also with Polly, please let me know. It'd be great to hear what your priorities are and what you're doing to manage your culvert.
The idea is like, we're putting a lot of time and money into making this prioritization tool, but I'm like, I know a prioritization tool isn't gonna solve New Hampshire's problems of crossing replacements. So we're trying to figure out like, what else can we support communities with to help increase the pace of this type of work? Because out of the 20,000 crossings statewide, we've surveyed 17,000, 70% of those are estimated to experience some sort of flooding during the 100-year storm. So it's like, we got to pick up the pace a little bit. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks for listening. Contact Tyrell if you have any questions or thoughts pop into your brain in the next couple days and weeks. I have to run. Thanks for having me. I left a pile of my cards at the back there. If anyone wants to reach out to me directly about other DES stuff, feel free.
Thanks, Polly.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Yeah, thanks, Molly. That's great.
Thank you, Polly. That was great. So if there aren't any other questions, next order of business is Justin Howard from the Lowell Regional Transit Authority is going to just provide some information about this fixed route system that's going to be operating beginning in July, as I understand it, from the Lowell Gallagher Transit Center, MBTA station over there to South Nashua. So I'm gonna let Justin, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, hi, everyone. Justin Howard. I am Director of Operations and Planning with the LRTA. I've been here about 2 years, and before that, I was with the MPO in Lowell, NEMCOG, if you all are familiar. And I was there for about 20 years. So I was on your side as well. Go ahead, you can move forward.
You want me to move it? Okay.
Yeah, next slide. Yeah. So we're talking about a new service, really, and we're calling it Nashua Connection, and connection being really the big theme of what we're trying to do at the LRTA right now. The state of Massachusetts has really made a big push for projects that improve connectivity between the different transit authorities within the state. And we've done a lot of work with the MBTA to our south, Merrimack Valley to our east, and Montechusett area, Leominster, Fitchburg to our west. And really one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was crossing that border to the north, because we've heard over the years our customers have been really enthusiastic about crossing the border, having access between Lowell and South Nashua. And one of the things we've been doing for decades, really, as far as history, is we've been running a holiday service, Black Friday, the Saturdays in December, and it's been a really successful effort. We've approximately 100 to 200 per day, and we're thinking that if we go forward with a full service serving Nashua and making that connection across the state, giving Nashua a connection to MBTA commuter rail in Lowell, it's going to be a really successful program. So one of the things we did to make this happen was we applied for, MassDOT started a new grant program last fall called the Connectivity Grant Program. And it was approximately $10 million throughout the state. And we applied for a pilot program for 1 year of service between the Gallagher Terminal in Lowell and South Nashua, the Pheasant Lane Mall area. And we were awarded that back in the fall. And we've been working with Camille at Nashua Transit and the city to really move forward with that effort. Basically, all late winter through this spring, and we're still working to really finalize how that whole thing is going to look. So, next slide, please. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, we're getting there. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. So here's a proposal. This is the map here on your screen, and hopefully you can see the proposed route. It's full service. We're going from our holiday service 5 days a year to 6 day a week, full service, Monday through Friday and Saturdays, starting at the Gallagher Terminal in Lowell, running through the city, past UMass Lowell South Campus, which hopefully we can bring some of the students that go to UMass Lowell up into the Nashua area as well. And so it'll move through Lowell, it'll move through Chelmsford, past Tingsboro Center, past the bridge, on up into southern New Hampshire area, making stops at the Pheasant Lane Mall, going on some of those side roads past like Home Depot and Trader Joe's and some of the shopping areas in there, then taking a left onto Daniel Webster and going into the Market Basket before returning back down to Lowell. And one of the interesting things is with that connectivity, we're meeting Nashua Transit at two separate places. Their Route 6 and their Route 6A will connect with our Route 19 at both the Pheasant Lane Mall and at the Market Basket on the Daniel Webster Highway. So that's exciting things for us, and we are finalizing that effort now. And you can move to the next slide. Kind of our next steps. We're working on a marketing plan, which will likely be rolled out in June. Our service is planning to begin on July 6th, and it'll run through fiscal year 27. One of the things we're going to do in anticipation of this being a successful route is we're going to apply for another connectivity grant in the fall to make sure we can get funding to operate the service starting in fiscal 28 and run for another year of that. And with that, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I can take any questions anybody has.
I have a question or two.
Yeah.
First question is, I've never lived down in Massachusetts for any time. So when I go down to the Gallagher terminal, where does that connect me to in Massachusetts?
So at the Gallagher terminal, you can, Gallagher terminals are bus hubs. So all of the LRTA's bus lines begin and end at the Gallagher terminal. And in addition to that, the MBTA commuter rail Lowell line terminates at the Gallagher terminal. So you could get off of our bus and basically walk across the street onto the MBTA's commuter rail, take that into Boston.
And second question, is this service going to be accessible for wheelchairs, disability folks?
Absolutely. All of our buses handle wheelchairs. Yes.
A question, are there going to be any stops in Tewksbury and Chelmsford on the way going up or coming back?
Yeah, so we have a flag stop system, and we're still working on like the specific stop locations in Massachusetts. We're working with Tingsboro on that, but odds are there'll be a stop near North Chelmsford, near Vinyl Square. There'll be a stop near Tingsboro Center, near the bridge. And the rest of it will likely be a flag stop. So if you want to stop, you would just sort of, you just press the button, you pull the cord, and they'll stop safely somewhere nearby. Or if you're waiting for a bus, you can flag it down.
Question. If you're going to start 6th July, when will a route schedule be published, or for times?
Yeah, that's going to come out in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, we're finalizing that right now.
Justin, you may have mentioned this, but what is the fare on this?
So right now we're fare free. We get funding from the state through the Fair Share Act, if you all are familiar. Millionaire's tax, it's for transportation and education in Massachusetts. So we get our operational funding through that, so we do not charge fares at the moment.
And I would also note, Justin mentioned that there's studies that they've done have indicated a demand, and our various transit studies have also said the same thing, that there is demand from this direction going towards Lowell. So it does kind of sync up with what we already know. So that's really good.
And I used your plan in the application too, Matt.
Good. Donna.
So I have a question about to Lowell General Hospital.
Yes.
Transfer to Lowell General Hospital.
So you would take we call this the 19 national. You take this bus to the Gallagher terminal and then get on the Route 7 bus, which runs from the terminal. So it'll be a 2C ride.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question, do these buses have any bike racks on the front or the back?
Yes, all of our buses have bike racks on the front of the bus. Yep.
And another question, do you have a time estimate of roughly how long this route will take?
So it's approximately an hour route each way. So headway every hour you will see a bus in South Nashua.
Yeah, well.
And we try to time it really well with Camille's with Camille 6 and 6A. So you're not sitting around waiting for I believe it's like 15 to 20 minutes in between the connections between the two buses.
One other quick question. Does your organization or does your state work in conjunction with anybody in New Hampshire that's trying to get rail service up to Nashua?
Yeah, I was part of the Capital Corridor study back in the day where we talked about that. And I know Northern Middlesex Council of Governments has set up a task force to look into extension of commuter rail. I believe they've met once, and I think their second meeting's in June. So there are active organizations, and I know Nashua and NRPC has been invited to those meetings as well to be part of that task force.
So it's percolating.
Yeah, we're talking about it. Where the money comes from, that's going to be the real story. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Justin, thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
All right, to be continued, and we'll be looking to help publicize this. That's super important. I know, Donna, you've mentioned that, a lot of times that's really key to get it out there so people know about it, right? All right, thank you. So next order of business, we're gonna talk about kind of the next. Let me pull this up.
Hey, while you're fishing there, Matt,
Sure.
this conference that was going to happen in June that was just referenced for this rail conference, will the NRPC towns be invited to that, or what kind of conference is it?
It's not really a conference. This is really kind of a strategy meeting between just some of the key stakeholders to see if it makes sense to maybe try to move forward with with the project itself, but also putting together a broader stakeholder group is really what we're strategizing about.
Okay.
The idea of ultimately building a coalition, if that makes sense.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
So it's time to begin thinking about the next iteration of the state 10-year plan, which a 10-year transportation plan, which is going to be the state fiscal year 2029, 2038 plan. And we just want to take a little bit of time, a few minutes, just kind of remind you that, that process is start up again and just talk about what we're thinking about how that's going to move forward. Most of you know that state legislation requires the DOT to propose a plan for transportation improvements every 2 years. It's a 2-year update cycle. The plan focuses on roads and bridges, multimodal projects. And the purpose is to, make sure that state is connected into the, federal funding, and also to to list projects and programs that are going to be funded with state transportation dollars. That's kind of a really boiled down kind of, what the legislation is about. And you guys have seen this before. This graphic shows how projects go from, concept to construction. The current 10-year plan is fiscal years 25 through 34. That is, that's the law. That's until approximately the end of June when the state legislature completes their work and the governor hands it over to the governor for signature. That's when the 2027 to 2036 plan that we have been involved with for the last 2 years becomes law, right? And the first 4 years of the 10-year plan is our 28 tip. That's federal requirement. And we'll talk a little bit about it in a couple of minutes, but once that 2027 to 2036 plan is adopted, then the process of updating that tip will begin. We'll just talk about that briefly in a minute. And of course, the tip and the 10-year plan are a subset of our long-range plan. And our current long-range plan is for the years 2023 to 2050. It's 20-year horizon. Minimum is the federal requirement. And, projects get into that long-range plan, from various sources, from master plan ideas, local project submissions, so on, different sources, but they get into those outer years of the long-range plan. If they continue to percolate and kind of get, scoped out, they'll eventually they can make their way through this update process, this 2-year process, right, into the 10-year plan, and eventually work their way up to the tip and, and construction. So that's kind of the process. And I did, so there is a memo in your packet that is kind of summarizes all what we're talking about here. And I also provided hard copies of this. And this is, I thought it would be good just to remind ourselves of how the whole process works. So, we're always in some time frame of this cycle. So if we're talking about the beginning of the cycle, technically new projects are kind of solicited and proposed, probably officially in the fall. NRPC and probably the other planning commissions usually get a jump on that and start soliciting projects in early in the even years. And I wanted to point out that this iteration, this update is going to be different than previous updates in that, as you know, with the revenue issues that the state has for this next draft that will be soon adopted, there are revenue issues. So this cycle is going to be a little different, and we'll talk about that in a minute. DOT did provide some guidance on that. So we solicit projects. We through the kind of in the spring and summer, and then through the fall, we work to prioritize them. And then as the odd year approaches through the winter and early spring, we finalize our priorities, we submit them to New Hampshire DOT, and then in the spring, early summer of the second year of this cycle, DOT creates the next draft. Once they're done with that, in the fall of that odd year, it gets handed off to the legislature and Gasset the governor's advisory council for intermodal transportation they have their hearings through the fall of that odd year. So that would be next fall, a year from this fall. When Gasset completes their process, they hand the plan to the governor reviews it, hands it to the state legislature, and then it makes its way through the state legislature, which is where it's at, where the 2027 through 2036 plan is right now. And they're kind of coming to the end of that process. So that's the cycle that we've been through many times. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, one quick one.
Yeah, well,
If projects are on the 10-year plan now, or the existing 10-year plan, do they have to be revalidated by the towns, or will they automatically go into the new 10-year plan?
well, if they're currently in the plan, no.
No what, or
No,
no?
they don't have to be, they don't.
Well, we will be asking though to confirm with communities whether or not those.
Right, so that, like for the draft, they'll be automatically included, and it will be up to the towns to validate that.
Well,
Or,
sure, I mean, there were projects that are already in the 10-year plan.
yeah,
They're in there, but as Jay said, and we'll talk about it in a second, we are going, part of our outreach that's coming up, we will, and because this is a slightly unorthodox or different process this time, we will be asking communities to revalidate that,
Yeah.
reprioritize. So that's a good question. So we are initiating this next round. This is usually the time that we do it. And we did get guidance from DOT about this. And again, remember that there are revenue issues, and that's why it's a little different for this cycle. So the guidance is that this would be a limited selection process. It might be more of a prioritization process. So we should, as we move forward, our community should consider that those projects that are going to be that soon to be adopted next year. You're going to recall some of those projects were right away and project design were left in the 10-year plan, but construction was delayed out into the future until funding sources are identified. So the guidance is to think about those projects and make sure that they are priorities. And kind of to Will's question, the guidance is to review the 10-year plan projects that are in there, the scope for cost and community priority. And there is this option that if they're no longer priorities, then a community could substitute an equal size project.
So key there is in this process is, unlike past years, we will not be soliciting new projects. So that's really the key here. In most years, we've gone out and solicited new projects to add to the 10-year plan. Because of the funding constraint, that's not going to happen. So the focus is going to be on confirming what is already in the 10-year plan. Are those still priorities for your community? And the other key though there is an opportunity to substitute. So if you're willing to say this project is no longer a priority for our community, however, we have another project that is, then there is that opportunity to substitute.
I think same size means cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that's inevitable, right? Because we do know that with the horizon of the 10-year plan being so far out, priorities change. So I think this is going to be it's going to be more important than ever to really focus on what are your community priorities. And if there's projects that we've kind of been pushing out because the support isn't there or the match isn't there or whatever, maybe we reassess.
Yeah. And so as part of this outreach, and this is true every cycle as well, but we're going to also be asking about those long-term plans, or projects that might be percolating out there and to think those through, because we do have projects in our long range plan in some of our communities that, you know, may or may not be really in reality anymore or future reality. So when we do this outreach, we're gonna be asking to review not only 10-year plan projects, but any other projects that might be percolating along, and so we can reprioritize our list out into the future. And another thing to note is that the current, so the federal high surface transportation legislation, which is currently the IIJA, that expires at the end of this September. The new legislation will be maybe ready for October 1st, might not be, there may be a continuing resolution, we don't know. But DOT, you know, suggested, and it makes sense to, with this process of reprioritizing projects, just be prepared that for, you know, opportunities that might be created with funding in the new legislation or other funding sources. So, you know, that's a really big deal if that federal legislation is expiring and the new legislation is being created. You know, who knows how that's actually going to look. I think generally what DOT suggests is that assume level funding in the future. So we'll see. And so just kind of a timeline, and this is sort of a work in progress, how this will really play out. But we will be reaching out to, you know, town administrators, selectmen, planning board, TTAC, and PO reps with this request to identify issues and needs, review your 10-year plan and long-range projects for continued community support. Again, prioritize those projects and then identify any projects that are no longer priority. So kind of repeating what I've already said, but this will be sending out outreach letter to request that information. And I think we'll probably meet in person if that needs to talk about that, kind of to be determined as we move forward here. And just again, it's again a little bit of an unorthodox process this time, but you know, over summer, once we've done this outreach, we'll summarize our list of projects, produce a reprioritized list, submit. I'm assuming we'll submit that to DOT for their consideration, and then that process plays out. You know, the end of next summer will be the next. GASA hearings will begin and the process will continue. So I think that's what I wanted to say about the 10-year plan process. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Any comments? Yeah, Ben.
Is the intention to do a prioritization or scoring committee like we've done in years past still?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
Is the intent to still do, I believe, because we did this last year, there was a subcommittee that was like scoring for the purposes of reprioritization. Is that a thing you plan on doing or now?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, if we do, I think it's gonna look very different. There's still gonna have to be a vote. Approval, but unless there's a significant change to the project list, it will, I don't imagine we go through the same process.
Yeah.
Our town's gonna have to represent the projects.
Yeah, I think we should anticipate that, yes.
Our town's going to have to represent the projects.
Yeah, I mean, we already had, we did submit that list of prioritized projects already, right? And it may be that's same list if all of our communities are still in the same position and they still want to go forward with those projects. So yeah, we'll have to kind of figure that out and hadn't gotten that far yet.
So I guess if I could, I guess I'm a little confused. I thought that the projects that were already accepted are in the plan. But am I now hearing that projects in the plan will need to be represented?
No, it's that what we want to do is just confirm whether or not those are still your priorities. If you're in the plan, we just want to get that sense of the community. Have your priorities changed? Because you do have the opportunity to substitute another project as an example.
Okay, which doesn't necessarily mean that we need to represent it.
No, but what we'll wind up doing is we will have a, well, first of all, there might be changes to your project. But at the end of the day, we're still gonna have to vote to send a list. So exactly what that looks like, we might not say re-present it, with your slideshow, but that might make sense. Before we vote. Everybody is, it isn't gonna be the same people necessarily around the table. There might be different people. And everybody isn't gonna remember your project. So having some sort of presentation might make sense. But we're talking, down the road.
Okay.
That makes sense, especially if it's something that you're adding or changing.
So
Something's already in there,
yeah.
something, but if it's a substitution, then it makes sense to have a new presentation. I think.
Yeah. So sort of also in this mix, there are some other projects that we're working on. As I mentioned, this fall, after the 10-year plan is adopted in June-ish, start the process for updating our tip. So that's going to be happening, kind of November through February. We're putting together that tip and adopting it in February. We're also we're starting the development of an update of our long-range plan. So will be more to come on that, probably beginning this summer, fall type thing. And then we're also working on our congestion management plan, another federally required document. So those are all kind of happening simultaneously with this update. So wanted to put that out there. So are any questions about the 10-year plan? I know we don't have, all the details figured out. It's kind of an unorthodox a little bit this time around. So kind of to be continued about how we'll do the prioritization. But are there any questions about this? All right, so I think the next order of business is just, we had one minor revision, and we don't have to vote on this or anything, but this project in Nashua, the improvements to the Walnut Street Oval, there's just an increase in funding. It happens to be in the engineering phase of less than 3%, and there's a change in the funding source from surface transportation block grant over 200,000 people to the state flexible surface transportation block grant. So unless Rain or Mark or anybody wants to correct me, it's the reason for the change is the new project estimate. And again, sometimes DOT to maintain fiscal constraint, they have to move around different funding sources. So that happens from time to time. So any questions on this minor revision? All right. What I have for that. So the next order of business is any other NRPC projects. I know Donna always has something to say here. So you're more than welcome, Donna.
Thank you. So the next meeting is May 28th of the Regional Coordination Council. So if you could kindly post this in your office or put it on your website, if you have a website, it's really appreciated because it lets people know that there are community transportation options in our region. And we're really working to make the connection so everybody's covered. And thank you.
And that was the meeting that was canceled like last month or 2 months ago.
Yes, exactly. So thank you if you could post it or let people know that.
Thank you, Donna. So any other NRPC updates? Okay, good. So how about municipal updates? Anybody in the room? Yeah, Eric.
So we have an update on our North 02-42593 project. We just recently completed the study engineering phase, and the project had, just unfortunately, it was a complex project with a lot of private property concerns. And our board did decide to select the no build option. So we're working with the state right now to finalize, all of that paperwork. So it was unfortunate.
It is a 10-year plan project.
It is.
So that's the one that's on the railroad right away.
Yeah, it's part of the rail. I guess I'm talking about it like everyone knows exactly what it is, but it's part of a rail bed that was the idea and the vision is to create, kind of a multimodal trail along former rail bed. And really this particular segment, if you will, that we received funding for, we divided it up into multiple segments. But the middle and largest segment that we would need to develop to have a connecting through trail is all private property. And, we did work with the state and, even though right of way isn't part of the study engineering phase, we did kind of look at some of that early on just to try to identify problems. And, due to after really a lot of public engagement, multiple public meetings, the board decided to, select the no build option, which the state did put on the table. So, yeah, really unfortunate.
So
Doesn't mean something couldn't happen in the future, but I think we're gonna go back to the drawing board. There's a lot of work to do, I think, with public engagement and, just to see what's possible in the future.
So with that being the case, if that was in the 10-year plan, would then Amherst have the chance to swap that with a different project?
That's a great example of swapping project.
Yeah.
What was the number on that project?
42593 is the state project number.
Right. Thank you. Any other municipal updates? Okay, how about, let's see, how about NTS? Any updates, Camille? You're good?
Yes, thank you.
Amanda, do you have any updates you want to provide from Bike Walk Alliance? She may come back. Let's see, William, any?
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to get called on.
Oh.
No, at this time, I don't think I have anything.
All right, well, thank you. All right, William, anything from DOT?
No, I think you got all the high points already, Matt.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I think that's probably it. So unless there are any other discussion things, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Barry.